and happy Palm Sunday to everyone. And we want to thank those little angels that helped with the palming today. We're grateful to be able to share this time and space, and I'm very grateful and honored to be here to share with you and celebrate this day that we have here together. So we are, again, so very grateful to be able to come together as a family of unity, and a unity family that really works together and prays together, supports each other together, and comes together in love. And so thank you for being here, and thank you for your support, not only here, but out in the world that you bring to the world. And so thank you for the difference that you're making. Yeah. A few weeks ago at our spring concert, we had an amazing evening of inspiring, uplifting, and very healing music. And those of you who were here that night witnessed that. And I had the experience, and perhaps those of you who were here as well, perhaps experienced that it reflected in a remarkable way how we can be raised in celebration of who we are. Music does that to us, doesn't to our soul. And so we are very grateful that here at Unity, there's such wonderful music here shared, and thank you to our music director and the team. So thank you. Yeah. So today being Palm Sunday, we're invited to reflect on these past weeks of Lent that have prepared the way before us to embrace what it means to be raised in spiritual celebration of who we are, of our spiritual consciousness. And during these last few Sundays, as Reverend Lori has shared, we have been encouraged to walk in faith, to persevere, to trust the unseen, to live mindfully as we embrace our unity consciousness. And we have been reminded that the stronger our spiritual foundation is, the stronger our faith is. Yes? Yes. And the greater we walk in peace. We are also reminded that just as Jesus walked in faith, we too are being asked to trust that indwelling spirit, to be curious as a child, and to know that we are never alone as we walk our spiritual journey. Within the Unity Truth movement, we are often invited to shine our light. Yes. To be the peace and the love that we want to see in the world. To be a mirror of the divine. And here to humbly help one another. Not only to help one another, but to recognize the Christ within each person. I'm reminded of a story of 9 contestants who all participated in the Seattle Special Olympics some time ago. Perhaps some of you have heard of this story. Each contestant was either mentally or physically challenged, and they were about to partake in the 100-yard dash. So as the race began, they all started out maybe not so much dashing forward, but with determination to run the race, to finish and win, right? All of them but one boy was left behind, who stumbled and tumbled a few times and began to cry. Well, the 8 others who were in progress slowed down and looked back. And then they saw the boy that was there on the ground crying. They all turned around and headed back. And when they got there, there was a girl that had Down syndrome, and she bent down and kissed the boy and said, "This will make it all better." And then all 9 of them got up, they locked arms, and they all walked to the finish line. Yeah. And of course, all the crowds in the stands just stood and clapped for them for several minutes. And for some time after that, they all told about this story. And the story, I guess, was shared for some time. And why? Because there was an understanding of what really was important, what really mattered in life, was more than winning for ourselves. And what truly mattered there was that it was about helping others win, even if it meant to slow down and change your course. And what a great parable and reminder for each of us to embrace as we are being raised in celebration of our spiritual consciousness. And Mother Teresa once shared these words, "Let us be open to God so that He can use us. Let us put love into our actions. We need not do great things, only little things with great love." And in 1 Corinthians, we read, "Let all that you do be done in love." Palm Sunday, as you know, is also recognized as Passion Sunday. Perhaps many of you are aware of this already. Metaphysically, it symbolizes our moving into and embracing that higher or highest state of the mystical union that we have with the divine, as the soul makes the journey inward, yielding to the divine will. So in other words, it's where we completely surrender the human will to the divine of the God within, our higher self or our Christ consciousness, even at the cost of being misjudged or misunderstood by the world, as Jesus was. Have you ever had that experience where you're walking your spiritual path, you're doing all that you know to do, and yet there are those who misunderstand us? We have a show of hands, you know. And so that's okay. It's all depending on where we're at in our spiritual walk. So as we each have gone through our path of transformation, and of course these last several weeks as we've moved through Lent, for some of you, you may have experienced perhaps a dark night of the soul, and perhaps throughout our lifetime, different times we've had those experiences. But we need to know that during those times, our souls are being purified, so to speak. It's all part of the cleansing and the transformation that takes for all of us into a greater awareness. And from the Unity Lent book, of course, we read these words, and I quote, "Sometimes we have to lose everything to gain everything that is worthwhile." Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Palm Sunday, of course, begins Holy Week and honors, as we've heard, Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And of course, Jesus, a man who is and was honored as a great teacher, rabbi, leader, prophet, Messiah, an anointed one, would be the one who leads his people into a new kingdom, the new kingdom of spiritual consciousness. We know that on Palm Sunday, Jesus and his disciples walked from Bethany to Bethphage, a small village just outside of the Mount of Olives. And the village Bethphage, metaphysically, means a place in our consciousness where grace is realized, where blessings are realized, where spiritual awakening takes place. We know that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, and the donkey symbolically, metaphysically represents humility and gentleness, but also represents stubbornness, persistency, and endurance. Jesus riding the donkey, symbolically, represents the I am, or the Christ consciousness that has mastery over the ego and rises to spiritual mastery as he enters into Jerusalem, which represents, perhaps some of you know, is the center of consciousness, the home of our soul, the place of perfect peace. And so when we think about the multitudes of the crowds, all of those that were present, waving palms, just imagine. Oh, and look. Magically appeared. Yes. Well, and the crowds themselves, they represent humanity joyously responding to the presence of Christ among them. And they also represent hope and our thoughts and beliefs that are being raised in awareness of the I am of who we are. Of course, the laying of the palm branches on the road, as Jesus rode into Jerusalem, was a sign of honor and respect, and represents the unlimited reserves of strength and peace available, as well as the victory of spiritual consciousness, resurrection, and the triumph of eternal life. As we have heard already throughout the service, we've heard the songs of singing Hosanna, powerful word. And back in the day, of course, the word Hosanna represented save us. Mm-hmm. And that's the classical interpretation of that. And from John 12:13, we read that they took branches from palm trees and went out to meet him, shouting, Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. Now, metaphysically, the word Hosanna is a reminder for each of us to wake up and recognize our inner potential or power, and then allow for transformation to take place as we raise ourselves in celebration into a higher awareness of our true self. Now today, when you leave the service, actually in the front lobby there by the bookstore, you will receive a palm frond, okay? And as you do, we invite you to reflect on that which has been victorious in your life, that which has brought perhaps you a new sense of freedom in your life, or how you have resurrected something in your life that has given you new meaning to your existence. Now, it has been customary in ancient traditions, and especially in northern and European countries where palm branches were not readily available. So what did they use? We have before us here pussy willows, and also forsythia branches. Very significant in biblical times. They were also used back then. Now, they were significant because they were one of the few plants that were budding in the springtime. And so, again, not only were palm branches laid before, but we have the pussy willows and the forsythias, and there may have been some other plants that were growing early spring as well that they used. But those are significant. Some of you were wondering, well, why on earth do we have pussy willows here? There you have it. And now you know. Yeah. And pussy willows themselves represent new beginnings and renewal, and the awakening of our inner hopes and joys and inspirations. And they also represent resilience, protection, resurrection, and everlasting life. And the forsythias represent hope, anticipation, renewal, confidence, power, and joy. So as we celebrate this day as the awakening of the Christ awareness in humankind, symbolized by the arrival of Jesus in Jerusalem, let us know that this event in history truly transcends all religions, denominations, cultures, and beliefs, and offers all of us an invitation to release our fears and all blocks to love's presence, and to embrace the peace, the love, and the joy that Jesus taught. In unity consciousness, we are continually invited to look within, to honor and learn from that Christ nature within us every time we make wise, healthy, and loving decisions. And just as Jesus was a mirror, wonderful mirror for all of us and continues to be, let us remember that each of us has been given the divine appointment to be a representative of the Christ nature, a teacher, a peacemaker. And in Matthew 5:9, it states, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." When we remember that we are all of the Spirit, we then walk as Jesus walked, humbly, gratefully, and peacefully. In Ephesians 4:2, we're reminded that to be completely humble and gentle, and to be with patience, bearing one another in love. There's another story I'd like to share about a young boy and his grandfather who went fishing on a beautiful late spring or maybe early summer day. And the young boy was just so impressed with the surroundings, the blue sky and the white fluffy clouds that he saw, and then also the shimmering lights on the lake. And during this time spent with his grandfather, he began asking a lot of questions about why this and why that, and the grandfather responded to all of those questions, and the young boy was fascinated by the answers that he was receiving from the grandfather. And then all of a sudden he looked up in amazement and he asked his grandfather, "Grandpa, can anyone see God?" And the grandfather replied, "Jimmy, it's getting so that I can't see anything but God." Powerful. So then the grandfather explained a little bit about what that meant, and that everything is an expression of God. He said that when one opens one's eyes to the beauty everywhere around, to the joy, to the life, to nature, the beauty of nature, one can see evidence of God expressing itself everywhere. What a beautiful goal to have in this lifetime. And to be able to say, it's getting so that I can't see anything but God. The Christ nature in everything and everyone. And here we actually practice this. Every time we say, "Namaste," the divine within me recognizes and honors the divine within you. Yeah. So as we each travel on the spiritual path, we will continue to recognize spiritual blessings everywhere. And as each of us makes progress on our spiritual path, we're invited to see things anew, to keep our eyes and our hearts open to new possibilities that will bless our life and will continue to support us as sacred, blessed, loving souls, all here on a mission of our soul's growth as we evolve in our understanding of our spiritual essence. And we know that as we are graced by divine source, we are strengthened, we are encouraged, and we are inspired. And it is here where we find our peace, our joy, our hope, our resilience, our confidence. And so I'm going to invite you now to close your eyes for a few moments and just join me in this knowingness, to recognize within the truth of who you are. Allow yourself to enter into that stillness within your being. And we say, thank you, Mother, Father, God, for your presence in our lives, for guiding our ways as we celebrate the divine presence within. And we give thanks for the gentle releasing that of all that no longer serves our highest and best good. As we move into this Holy Week before us, we open our hearts and our minds to fully embrace being the light of the Christ consciousness. And as we do this, we collectively contribute to the peace and the healing of the world, just as Jesus, the way shower, did before us. This is the day that symbolizes the awakening of the Christ awareness of humankind as we open to new ways of thinking and being, honoring the Christ of our being. And aware of the activity of Spirit in all things, we give thanks for each step of our spiritual growth as we are gently raised up continually in our victorious journey of spiritual awareness, surrendering to and blessing the love, wisdom, and truth manifesting now and forevermore. And so it is. Namaste.